it's Brittany at Ingleside Imaginarium, and I told you I would be back soon. Today, this video is going to be all about the Stitch Mania experience I had this year. Mostly it'll just be showing off all the projects that I worked on. For me, Stitch Mania has and always will be, unless I decide otherwise, but it feels pretty good to be this way. It's going to be me working on projects the first 15 days of May. Back in 2015, I participated in the original Stitch Mania, and post 2015 have done what is now known as the Blimey Cat method, which the first year I worked on the same projects on the respective days they were started, unless I finished one of them, in which case I got to start something new. My channel here used to be called Blimey Cat Stitches, and Jessie Marie coined that as the Blimey Cat method, which now has been spread around with people not knowing what that means, because I changed my name to Ingleside Imaginarium when I started my design business. So that's the story behind that, and that's what I did this year. I did the Blimey Cat method of Stitch Mania stitching. So yes, I stitched on projects for the first 15 days of May, and there's not too much else to say, except something that happened between the other two videos and now. Is, if you recall, I had mentioned that I was feeling a little conflicted about the amount of sales and profit I was gaining from my Guardians of Notre Dame pattern, which, sorry, I was giggling because you could see this little corner of the curtain move as Goobian came through, and it made me laugh. The fire that occurred at the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris is not funny at all, and I had garnered quite a few sales after that fire, and I was feeling a little conflicted. Well, the day after I filmed that video was Easter, and as most of you probably know, in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday there were bombings that just injured, I think, over 250 and maybe killed 150, something like that. And I decided that I was going to donate a portion of each sale of the pattern for the month of April and halfway into the month of May to that cause, to the Sri Lanka Red Cross Society. And I'm excited to announce that the people who purchased that pattern and a couple outside contributors, we managed to raise $500 for the Sri Lanka Red Cross Society. So that's pretty awesome. Thank you to everyone who purchased the Guardians pattern. I know most of you, before I announced that, were doing it because you wanted something to remember the cathedral, and hopefully everyone can be excited that in getting that pattern to remember the cathedral, we are also helping out people who were victims of the bombings, as well as their loved ones who are having to deal with, the aftermath of losing someone very important in their life. And, maybe the financial stress that they experience with healthcare and with, loss of wages or whatnot can be reduced by the contribution we made to the Sri Lanka Red Cross Society. So thank you very much for that. I'm pretty excited and just very grateful to you all for your help in that. And now, without further ado, let us talk about Stitch Mania and the progress I made. So I think how this is going to work, I am going to show, you would have seen it in my first Stitch Mania plans video, but I'll go ahead and post as well. What I'm going to do is post the picture from last year's Mania, because I know I have a picture of that, and then that will be progress that happened over the year as well as progress that happened on the piece. If you'd like to see exactly where every project was before Stitch Mania, you can watch my plans video. I think it's only half an hour long, so it's not terribly long. Yes, with that, let's get started. May 1st, during Stitch Mania, I was working on this project. It is called Ingleside Imaginarium's Raptor's Love. Raptor as in Velociraptor, or Utah Raptor, or whichever kind of raptor you choose them to be. And this is where the project was after last year's Mania. And here is where it is for this year's Mania. So I was able to stitch the feathers on top of the head, the feathers on the wing, as well as the gray around the chest, the face, and the legs. So I was feeling pretty darn good about that progress. Getting those feathers in was pretty exciting. I had decided when I went to stitch this that I was not feeling up to this large swath of gray in the actual raptor, so I went ahead and outlined nearly the entire thing. So what will be next is filling him in, and then I'll have one raptor down and be ready to do the second one. Day 2 of Stitch Mania was a new start for me because I finished my Pokemon piece. Well, I decided my Pokemon piece was finished. And that meant I got a new start. I chose to start another Pokemon piece, but this one is much smaller. If there's a single Pokemon, and that Pokemon is Nidoking. And this is where I got, like I mentioned, it was a new start, so there was no progress to begin with from last year. And this is his ear coming around the side of his face. So you can't really see much on it, but it'll happen. I love stitching these Pokemon sprites because they just translate very well into cross stitch and they go pretty quick. So hopefully that will be a finish for next year. It will be a finish for next year. That's not going to take me a year, and it's a gift for somebody, so it will get done. May 3rd was this pattern up here. This is called Ducks and Quilts from this book called Barnyard Quilts. It's a country cross stitch leaflet. And this is a very special project. It's one that was started by my mom in the 80s, and which I'm going to finish and give to her. And this is where it was after last year's Mania. And between now and then, this is where it is now. On the actual Stitch Mania day, I stitched this last goose. So yeah, this is coming along. I have all of this log cabin quilt to do, and then some back stitching, and it's done. I would really love to finish this year, and I know a lot of others are cheering for it as well. Goobian's gonna look like he wants to get in the window. There's a screen in there, and when the window's open, they can sit up in there. However, the window is closed now so that this video will be less noisy. So, sorry, you'll have to be disappointed. No window today, or right now, for the next half an hour. And if you could get off of my cross stitch so I can show them what I worked on. May 4th was my Sugar Skull C3PO project. This is what it will look like when it is finished. This is a design by Stitchline on Etsy. This is where I was last year after Stitch Mania. And this is where I'm at now. If you have watched me a while, you'll know I've had a checkered past with this project. It has been very difficult. It has not behaved well, but I'm happy to say that I finally was able to stitch this part in his forehead correctly. So that is in. It will not be coming out again, and I'm already feeling better about this project. My goal was to get it at least the first leg of halfway. So this is just about half of the project done. If you look up close, you'll see I still have to go back and cross some of those X's, but yay! This fabric, by the way, is Picture This Plus in Dusk, 32 count linen. May 5th is a Dimensions Gold Petite project called Napping Kitten. This is one that I've been working on since 2015. Here is where I was last year. And here is where I got this year. This was pretty fantastic progress, if you ask me. I was able to finish the brown color that I had gotten almost through last year and added an even lighter brown. Please don't chew on my stuff. And this little bit here are his little toe beans that are showing from behind the branch. So if you're wondering what those floating stitches are, that's what they are. I love on things like this seeing each color get filled in. And like, I started as a cross-country stitcher. I believe that's how my mom taught me, was kind of do one color at a time. And on a small project like this, it's really fun to be able to actually do that and see it grow. I love it. I need to pull that one out again before next year. May 6th is another Dimensions kit. This one is called Warm and Fuzzy Kitten. This is another holdover from 2015. This project has also given me a lot of trouble in the past. This is where it was after last year's Mania. And here is where I got this year. I had, I think, maybe 20 minutes to stitch on this, so I just got a few stitches in the cat's face, and they're not even all whole stitches, so not much to show. May 7th is this piece right on the front of this book. This book is an I Love Cross Stitch Dragons and Unicorns book, but the pattern itself is called Celestial Dragon. It's by Joan Elliott. This was a start last year, and this is where I was last year at Mania. And this is where I'm at this year. This is another project which I did not get to work on very much. I just started filling in with another teal color on the dragon's body right here. So day number 8, I worked on a project from this book. It's called Cats of the World in Cross Stitch by Jane Netley Mayhew and Nikki Wheeler. And the project that I worked on is this cat here. There is a series of 4 seasonal cats. This one is the cat for summer. It features an exotic short hair and the honeysuckle flower. And here is where I was at last year. And here is where I'm at this year. This one was very exciting because I got to work on some colors to where you can actually see stitching on this fabric. This is a 32 count linen in Pampas by Picture This Plus. And the 2 most orangey colors I finished this year. You can especially see them down here. This is all new stitching down here. So an orangey brown and a darker, I think it was like 436 and 437 or something like that. So I love stitching up Jane Netley Mayhew pieces, and I need to work on that one sooner rather than later if I can. I'm going to say that about everything, of course. We all know that that's the way it works. Mania comes, and if you do whips for Mania, every time you pull one out, you're like, oh, I want to work on that one again. Day 9 of Stitch Mania this year for me, I worked on this kit. This is another one from 2015. It is called Be Joyful. It's a Design Works kit. And this is where I was last year on the piece. And this is where I got this year. I finished up this flower down here, and I started on another flower behind it. So not terrible progress. You know, most of these projects I worked on after work, so you know that it's not a ton of stitching time to make things happen. And it turned out to be a very busy Mania. That was May 9th. This is May 10th. This is another Ingleside Imaginarium model stitch. It's called Give Me Some Sugar. And this is where I was last year. And this is where I got this year. Another piece that I had very little stitching time on. I was able to fill in this handle. So the other handle is not filled in. I only got one. I was thinking maybe I would get 2, but as I was stitching and I had to go meet someone somewhere, I was like, it's not gonna happen. That was May 10th. This is May 11th. Yes, May 11th. This is another Dimensions kit, surprise, surprise. Also started in 2015. This is called Ebony and Ivory. I think this is a really cool piece. I'll be excited to have it done. This is where it was last year. And here's where it is at this year. How exciting. The white cat has ears and a nose and a mouth and eyes. This was a Saturday, and so that's why I got so much progress done on it, is because I stayed home. You know, I didn't have to go to work, so I was actually able to do some stitching, which is really cool. And she's gonna look even cooler with the back stitch. I'm very excited. Adding those little details that make a picture come to life are, I feel like, just the most exciting part. May 12th was another new start and another Pokemon. This time it is a little Pikachu. It'll look like this. And this one makes me giggle so much because this is where I got just a little Pikachu face and 2 ears. It's pretty silly. This one's gonna go really fast. It's a pretty small, compact stitch, and it'll be super cute. May 13th would have been this project. However, as I told you last time, I was really hoping I would finish it. And I did. And I had this ironed, but somebody stepped on it. Who was that? Anyway, this is in the Meadow by Country Cottage Needleworks, and it is stitched on Weeks Dye Works Scuppernong and 30 count, and it uses all of the called for floss in Classic Colorworks, except I used a Weeks for the hat because I already had a black. But take a look at that. I'm so excited. A finish! Hooray! Not even a mini finish, an actual finish. And this one I'm hoping to go to Michael's and get like a distressed wood frame, you know, just keep it very country and simple and rustic. And it's gonna look nice. That'll be a gift for my grandma who loves snowmen. Because I finished that pre-Mania, that meant I got a new start. And this start was actually very timely because of the episode of Game of Thrones that happened last Sunday. Of course, I'm not going to go into any kind of spoilers, except to say that might be a minor spoiler, so if you want to skip ahead like a minute, go ahead. I'll say this very fast. This is your warning. Skip ahead a minute. I'm not going to spoil the plot detail, but because of what I'm going to say, it might hint at something. So yes, skip ahead a minute. This piece is going to be in honor of what could have been. It is not excusing or defending any particular character or things that happened. So yes, there's my disclaimer. I started this piece. It is by a designer called Lkacross. She's on Instagram. She's a Russian designer, and she has a website, and you purchase it and she will email you the PDF patterns. So this is called Daenerys, and it features a young version of Daenerys with her baby dragons. I just saw this and I loved the colors. Of course, I love dragons. You guys know that. So I decided I was going to stitch it. And one of the things I was kind of excited about this project, one of the reasons I was excited to stitch this project is that I've only ever had one full coverage design, and I kind of burnt out on it. You know, it was a piece of artwork, and I kind of fell out of love with the piece, and it just felt like it was too much work and not enough progress. Having looked through the pattern on this, I'm happy to say that it's not super confetti heavy. It's a lot of, you know, like a Dimensions kit, blocks of color and blended threads and that kind of thing. So I was kind of excited to have a full coverage project to work on again, which seems weird to say it, but I'm stitching it on 18 count Aida. It's the Goobian show today. I hope you guys like cats. I know most of you do. This is where I've gotten started. And I think my method of attack on this piece is going to be cross country by page, because I just love cross country, and I'm hoping that that will keep it from having those columns. If you have advice for keeping tension consistent or to avoid kind of the column page look on full coverage designs, I have a feeling it's partially unavoidable, just probably because of the way progress happens on them. But let me know if you have any tips, because I would love to hear them. Kim, Spartan Stitcher, talking to you. Yes, so I'm actually excited about this, and I actually only had about this much done post Mania, but I worked on it last night a little bit because I was a little excited. To go with that, I also should mention that I bought a Lowry stand because somebody on Stitch Maynia had mentioned it was on Amazon, and I was like, ooh, I'll just snap that up because I knew I had this project to start. So it actually was, I got it in the mail the day I started this project. So it kind of worked out that I had this new big project, and then I could use that stand. I'm still kind of getting used to the idea of, like, on my smaller projects using it, because it seemed, well, my bed has shelves under it, drawers, I mean, and even that little base does not fit under my bed. So it's a little hard to finagle position-wise, where I sit like on the edge of the bed so I can still reach it with smaller pieces. So I'm still getting used to it, and I'm excited to have it, but I feel kind of funny because I haven't been using it as much as maybe I should utilize it. And I'm still not terribly quick at the two-handed stitching. But I think that's something you get used to as you know, obviously it's something you would have to get used to. But let's finish this up 2 more days. This is day 14, another Design Works kit. This is in the same series as Be Joyful. It's called Have Faith. And here's where I was at for last year's Mania. This is another one crushed by Hoobian, so ignore the creases here. I did press all of these before showing you. Here's where I'm at. This one was really fun because I got the bird done, and I got a leaf and a tiny flower as well. So I'm pretty excited to have gotten that progress. And the last day was a design by Pinky the Pink. It's called Barn Owl Familiar. It will look like this. And here is where I was at after last year's Mania. And here is where I got for this year's Mania. I am really excited with this, how this project is kind of just chugging along. He looks a little ghostly because I've only done one side of the stitches so far. So next time this pulls out, my goal will probably be to get back over all of those stitches. And then there he has a little bit on his head, and I gotta do his eyes and his beak and fill in these flowers and his feet, and should be done soon. So hopefully this will be finished before Mania next year. That would be pretty cool. That one and the 2 Pokemon, and hopefully barnyard quilts. All of those I think are ones that perhaps I'd like to have done for next year. And have, what is that, I think 4 new starts perhaps? I know Daenerys will not be done, but we'll see as far as the other ones go. Most of the kits probably won't be finished. Maybe, well, no, that's all I'll say. Those 4, I think, are going to be my goals for next year. Something else I wanted to show you very quickly, because this is the only other stitching that I have been doing, just to stay ahead and keep on top of my latest stitch along. This is Ingleside Imaginarium Mystery Sal 2019. This is A War of Tooth and Claw, based loosely around Game of Thrones. And the newest monarchs, and yes, I said monarchs, there were 2 released this month. And you might be thinking, but there are only 3 on there, and we've seen the other 2, but I'll show you. So this is the Kraken. He is basically a giant squid in black and yellow, wearing a copper crown. And if you watch the show or read the books, you'll know which family this one represents. And the Kraken actually is not really a traditional sigil or a traditional animal in heraldry, but for the show, it's a pretty major, in the books, it's a pretty major player. So that's why I wanted to include it. And it's interesting because I looked up I have a couple of websites that I have used for reference to help me, you know, put a little trivia about each animal and what they usually stand for or represent, and that kind of thing in my SAL, because I always like to have like a little story or something to go along with each part that releases. The one website that had a squid on it called it the calamari, and that made me laugh a little bit. So here's the calamari, or the Kraken. And I mentioned 2 monarchs were released. This is the other one. So I wanted an option for people who were more into this project for the heraldic aspect of it, and not for the show and book aspect of it. And so for this one, and there's one more, I mean, as you can see, I have something covered up down here. There's one more next month that are going to have 2 options that you can pick. I kept the color schemes the same because I wanted the project to kind of have the same look as far as colors and things go, because I planned it out to look a certain way. But this is a seahorse, or also known as a hippocampus. And he's also in the black and gold color combo and wearing a copper crown. His head is he's kind of got that kind of pulled in, aggressive, you know, like I'm going for that crown. He's looking right at it. Seahorses have the front half of a horse, the tail of a fish. A lot of times instead of hooves, they'll have fins, as well as maybe a fin going down the back of the head like this guy does. While the Kraken or calamari doesn't have a specific meaning because it's not so much a traditional heraldic animal, this one, the seahorse, represents power over the sea, or power of the sea, which seems pretty obvious. But it is one of, you know, the cooler, I wanted to get some fun fantasy animals in. So that's why I picked that one. And it was really cool because I had shown just in my story a little, I think I had just like parts of the black stitched, and I was like, can anyone guess what this is? Somebody did. They guessed it was the seahorse and they were correct. So that was pretty fun. So yes, 2 new monarchs in A War of Tooth and Claw, 2 more next month. The question is going to be, will I restitch the other monarchs on these other ones so I have 2 complete projects? We'll see. I don't know. You know, this is the one that I envisioned personally, and it's kind of I'm stitching it and designed it kind of as a way for myself to celebrate and memorialize this whole journey that we've been going on with Game of Thrones, and I thought maybe other people would like to as well. And I, of course, love stitching animals and fantasy creatures best, which you can tell by just looking at my Stitch Maynia. So that was the reason why I designed it and thought that this would fit well for my 2019 Mystery Sal, and that other people might want to stitch it. And I have seen a few other people stitching it, and that always makes me happy. But yes, that is all for Stitch Maynia this year. And that is all for this video. I don't have any other announcements, I don't believe. Thank you again to those of you who purchased the Guardians of Notre Dame pattern and helped me raise $500 for the Sri Lanka Red Cross Society. I know I already said it, but I'll say it again. It means a lot, and I appreciate your help with that. And yeah, that's all. Thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for commenting. And I'll see you guys next time. Happy stitching!